Can't get a flattering angle here, unfortunately.
Oh, don't even, yeah, you look great. You look great,
All right.
but the trick is not to look at yourself.
All right, go ahead, guys.
Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt, and I'm the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze. And I'm absolutely overjoyed and thrilled to have the amazing Darin Strauss here. He's got this great new book, The Queen of Tuesday, about Lucille Ball that we're going to talk about. And it's just amazing. There it is. And it's been racking up the raves, and it's absolutely incredible. Darin has won a Guggenheim. His books have been translated into 14 languages, and they include Cheng and Eng, Half a Life, which totally decimated me, and I still have it on my desk because I love it so much. More Than It Hurts You, The Real McCoys, and now, of course, The Queen of Tuesday, which is getting accolades from the Washington Post, the LA Times, and more, and it's an absolutely amazing book. So before I start peppering Darin with questions, I just want to say, this is my new book. And I had a feature in the Washington Post. I got a rave in the Star Tribune. This is the anniversary copy of Pictures of You, which was the first book I did for Algonquin. And that's enough of a commercial. So.
Well, no, I wanted to add too that this is a very, very good book.
Thank you, Darin.
I'm reading it right now. It's really, really great.
Thank you. Okay, so this book, you've done something amazing in this book, The Queen of Tuesday, which is, it's part memoir and it's part fiction. And at first, as I was reading it, I kept thinking, oh, this part is the real part and this part is the part that Darin's making up. And then after a while, it was so realistic to me that I felt that all of it was true. So I wanted to ask you, how did this book start? Like, was it germinated inside of you for a while where you said, I want to write about this, and I want to write about my grandfather's supposed or real affair with Lucille Ball? And when you were writing it, were you very aware of what was real and what wasn't, or did it all seem real to you?
That's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. So the book is, as you say, it's about my grandfather, and it's his story on one side, and family memoir. And my grandfather was a complicated guy. And it's the story of Lucille Ball, and it's sort of a biography of her golden period. And then there's the fictional, I don't know why I did this. This is the fictional sexual affair that I invented between them. So that is fictional, the affair. They were at a party together, and my grandfather abandoned my grandmother. And so I sort of imagined, I always wanted to know what really happened with my grandparents and with him. I always found it fascinating that he did these bad things, but was beloved of my family anyway, even by my grandmother. He left her for her best friend, and she never stopped thinking about him as her husband. And I was just fascinated by Lucille Ball. And so I just thought, what a great book. And I'd written, as you say, I'd written a memoir, and I'd written fiction. And I thought, what if I could take what's great about both mediums, because I think what makes fiction great, well, what makes fiction hard, I should say, is every time you're writing fiction, you ask yourself, would this happen? Is it possible that this could happen? And so that's a real challenge. But then you can always make it interesting, because if, you can always make the story more interesting if you're having trouble. And nonfiction, you never have to worry about, could this happen, because it's true. But the problem there is, if it's not interesting, you can't change it. So I thought, well, what if I could take what's great about both and make a book really fun, by taking what's fun about fiction and what's fun about nonfiction. And so that was sort of the idea. And then just Lucille Ball is such a great character. I feel like she's underappreciated somehow. I mean, everyone knows how famous she is. I mentioned in the book, and this is true, she was so popular that when her show would break for commercial, the water tables in all the big cities would drop, because the entire nation flushed at the same time. Everyone
my God.
ran to the bathroom in her commercial. So that's how popular she was. But we don't think about beyond that. She had the first famous interracial marriage on American TV, and she had to fight for that. CBS did not want to have a white woman married to a Cuban guy on TV. She fought really hard for that. She was the first woman to be a Hollywood executive, a successful movie mogul. She forced the network to show her as a pregnant person on TV. So she was
Little Ricky.
yeah, so, all these things that we just forgot. So I thought, what a great story. And then the love story I thought would be really fun. And so that's how the book came about.
It was amazing. I mean, it was really, really amazing. I kept thinking, like, what? It felt absolutely real. And also what I really loved is you gave us a different facet of Lucille Ball. I saw her in an entirely different light, because you made her a very determined, ambitious, sexual woman, and you don't think of Lucy as sexual, but also like not the best mom either, which was really interesting. And I was wondering, like, because there's so many people who just, they love Lucy, but they don't know Lucille. Has anybody, like, given you any pushback about that? Not
Yes,
that I think they should.
yes,
I
no,
love the
yes,
book.
no. I've heard from friends of hers who are still alive. This guy, Lee Tannen, who wrote a book called I Loved Lucy. He was a very good friend. He's much younger than she is. And he said, it's true, she was not a great mother. And she was very ambitious, but I have nothing but admiration for her. So, and she is, there are sex scenes in the book. And it was challenging to write sex scenes with Lucille Ball and my grandfather, but she apparently was, a very sensual person as well. So I think, I wanted to capture the full woman, not the TV icon.
Right. There were also a lot of stuff that you put in about her that I just didn't know. Like, I didn't realize that she had been on Broadway and she actually was sort of a flop on it. I had no idea about that. Your research must have been really fascinating. Like, what did you find out that you had no idea about that really totally surprised you?
Well, what's so interesting about her, I think, she failed on Broadway. She failed in a lot of places. The TV show is her last shot. And so she came from New York, upstate New York, to New York City at 16 years old. And they said, you're not talented, go home. And so they sent her home.
Wow.
And then she came back again and again. And then she moved out to LA to try to be a movie star. And she made it sort of as a B-movie actress. She was called the Queen of the Bees for a little while.
Wow.
And after a while, she was dethroned from that. And she was fired by RKO and fired by MGM. And so TV was her last shot. And TV was not thought to be a great option. TV was a new medium, and people thought, we don't know if this is going to be a viable thing. Like, there was not really a TV star before her. She and Milton Berle came out around the same time, but before that, there were no major TV stars. It was like, radio was much more popular than TV. So what struck me about her too was her skill, I think, was her determination. She would say of herself, I can't sing, I can't dance, I'm not that pretty. And I disagree with that, but that's what she
Oh,
said.
I totally disagree with that.
This was a time when women's looks were scrutinized even more than now. Like, it's a misogynistic time still in Hollywood.
Right.
In the 50s. And there were people who were more attractive than her, I guess. There were people who were better singers. There were people who were better actresses even. Like, she would say, I'm not a great dramatic actress, I'm pretty good. I'm not a comedian, I can't write my own stuff. So what was it about her that made her so beloved? And I think people sensed her, and her determination was, I think, a big part of it. She would not back down. And even the show made a lot of material out of that. I mean, the show was about a woman who wanted to be famous and wasn't talented and would try and try and try.
That's right. But she was also in the show, she was also always shut down by her husband.
Yes.
I mean, which was kind of interesting. The other thing that I found completely fascinating was that she was Lucy to millions and millions of people, but to herself, she insisted that she was Lucille Ball, which was something very different. There was definitely that demarcation. So can you talk a little bit about that, how she didn't want to be Lucy, this woman struggling? And I mean, for someone who owned what was his club's name? The Copacabana, the Tropicana, I forget. Well, for someone who owned a club, they sure lived in a junky apartment.
Yeah. He, on the show, yeah. So he didn't own a club in real life, but on the show he owned a club. There's so many things about her that people blur the real and the fake. I mean, it's pretty sophisticated look at meta fiction in a way. You know, it's like
Right.
the show was about a woman named Lucy who was married to a band leader, and she was named Lucy and married to a band leader. To be honest, I accentuated the difference between Lucille and Lucy in the novel.
Okay, I loved it. I love that you did. That was so interesting.
More fictional, just a way to sort of demarcate the difference between truth and or her character that she played and the person she was. Yeah, she was very protective of her private life. And it's interesting, you know, she played America's wife and America's mom later on when she had little Ricky. And she was in a very troubled marriage and was a very, I don't know the right word, I want to be diplomatic here, I guess a very disengaged mom.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
I mean, the reason that she was so adamant that Desi star as her husband on the show, so CBS said, even though your career is struggling, we'll give you this TV show. And we want you to be married to this guy named Richard Denning. There's this white, waspy blonde guy. And she said, no, I have to be married to my husband. And the reason she did that was because she knew that if she were away from him for any set amount of time, he would cheat on her because he was a complete cheat.
Oh, did he know that? Did Ricky know that? Did he know that he was just being in the show not because he was talented or he could be a star, but because his wife didn't trust him?
I think she pitched it that it would be good for their marriage if they were together.
Wow.
Sure, you know, he wanted to be an actor too, so it was good for his career. But so it didn't work. I mean, it worked in that they had the most popular marriage in the history of the country at that point.
Yeah.
But it didn't work in that he still cheated. And actually, I just wrote an article for Vanity Fair about this, where at the height of their fame, and this is a very prim time, right? So in the show, they had to sleep in separate beds, even though they were married, because
right. All those shows did.
Because TV networks thought we can't show people in the same bed, even if they're married. And as that was happening on the air, the magazine LA Confidential, or Hollywood Confidential rather, had a big expose showing Desi sleeping with prostitutes.
Oh, that's right. That was in the book.
So it was well known, and they were so beloved that American people, even in the 1953, would just say, "Yeah, fine, we don't care."
Oh my God. Gee, that has some parallels to what's going on today in politics, doesn't it?
One of the things I wanted to examine in the book is fame as a phenomenon in America and how damaging it is. I mean, in a way, my grandfather's character had this brush with fame and became seduced by the glamour of fame as much as by her. And so it kind of ruined his life.
Yeah, fame will do that. We were talking before we went online about all the my husband was a rock journalist. Now he's a music journalist, and I got to meet a whole lot of really big famous people, and the ones who were the most famous were the biggest idiots. I mean, they really were seduced by that, and that was something that I wanted to explore in my book as well. I think it does ruin people, but I also wanted to ask about the other thing that I loved about the book was that it was so haunting. There was so much about what people felt were missed opportunities or missed chances or what might have been. And the more you get into the book, the more this yearning just grows and grows and grows. And you just feel like, oh, this is so terrible. So I wanted to talk to you about where you felt that yearning came from. And then after that, I want to talk about your role in the book as the young writer. But tell me about the yearning first.
I mean, I feel like love stories are so rarely done well because love can be so difficult and so painful and so multifaceted. You know, I think that it's a cliche, but I think it's true that the most interesting part of the story is often after the end of the romantic comedy when you're together and it happens, right? So I thought a great love story was Love in the Time of Cholera. So I wanted to do a sort of
Right.
American version of that, great love over many years that could be fantasy in the lovers' heads or could be real. I think that there's a question just about the nature of love itself in this book. Like, is it real? How much is imagined? So I think I wanted to look at that. And then with my role in the book, so there are two storylines in the book. One is Lucille and my grandfather, and the other one is me finding out that my grandfather had this love affair and then trying to get a movie made about it, based on a screen treatment he and Lucille did together. And that's very short. That's just 11 pages or 12 pages. But the interesting thing is when I handed the book in, that was a 300-page plot line. And I was a much bigger character, and my wife and
Wow.
and my editor said, you got to get rid of this. So it was the last book edited by the great editor Susan Campbell, who died.
Oh, right.
A year.
Where is this? So this movie treatment script exists, and where is it? Oh, it doesn't. Oh, you made it up. Okay. Because it sounded plausible, and it sounded so plausible to me. And I was going to ask you that it seemed like a very strange thing to write a treatment about a black soldier.
I thought it would be a great movie that I thought would be hard to get made in the 50s. And so I thought, the Civil War story about an African-American freedman who fights in the Civil War. And so that was the thing that they decided to do together, and there was pushback because they didn't want to do a movie about black characters. And then there would be pushback today because it would be white creators telling that story. So it was a look at the way different racial attitudes in different periods would push back.
There in the book, your character is certainly yearning to be someone and to achieve a kind of fame. And in your real life, you certainly have done that. So I wanted to know, what was it like for you when you were first starting out as a writer? Did you have that hunger for fame, or did you just want to be a writer? And how did you feel when your first success came hugely?
Well, I don't think I'm there yet, but that's very kind of you. But I think I'd like to say I wanted just to do the work and let the work speak for itself. But I think when I was younger, I was more ambitious for that kind of stuff. And the older I get and the more I write, I realize that you can never really control that stuff, or chasing that stuff is silly, because a good book might do badly just because of one bad review, and bad book might do well because of the timing or something. So I think I'm trying to get to this place where I'm just happy in the work. If I think the work is good, that should stand. As long as I'm allowed to continue to do it, that should be enough. I still don't know if I'm quite at that Zen place, but I want to I'm very proud of this book. I think it's good. It got me, it took me a long time to do it. So hopefully that's enough. Anyway, if I got a terrible review tomorrow in a big place, I might be different, and I might think differently, but so far the reviews have been quite good. So
the reviews have been great. The reviews have been fantastic. I always think of a time when I got, in the space of one day, I got this huge full-page, worst review I ever got, from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And then an hour later, I got a huge full-page rave in the Washington Post. And the Washington Post loved everything that the Inquirer did not like. And I remember my husband looking at me saying, see, you see why you shouldn't pay attention to this? And it's interesting. It's interesting.
It shows how random it is. I mean, I
it's
think
very random.
I'm trying to think who said that. Some writer I'm blanking on said, getting published in foreign countries shows you how random it is, because the same book will be a failure in England and a hit in France, and you'll be a genius in Italy and a moron in Germany. And it's the same book.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I had a friend, I haven't seen him in a million years, who published this book in the United States a million years ago called When I Was 5, I Killed Myself. Did not do well in the United States at all. Got literally no reviews, nothing. So he went to France, and all of a sudden they gave him a medal, like whatever their top literary medal was. And he lives there now because they love him there. They absolutely love him there. He sells out every single book he writes, and he cannot get published. Howard Butin.
Okay, it's so interesting.
He's also a clown. He also does clown stuff, and they love him for that too. It's sort of the Jerry Lewis stuff.
Huh.
But it's like, you know, he's much older now, so now he just says, it doesn't matter, what do I care? But at the time when it was going on, it would drive him crazy, because he would say he was on talk shows every night in France, and in America he couldn't get any editors to read his books. So
Yeah, I remember seeing Rod Stewart say that when he was young, he told his mom, I sold 20,000 records in the US and nothing here. And so she said, well, you got to move to America. And that's why he moved here, I guess.
wow.
He was only at 20,000. Like, he was obviously selling millions later on, but I thought that was
That's so. Yeah, and I think, well, don't you think that that whole attitude though also comes with, like, as you get older and you suffer more losses and stuff, you start to realize, okay, what's important here?
Yeah.
And am I really going to buy into this? Or certainly it's nice when you have all the raves and the stuff, but it's not the most important thing in
Yeah,
life.
I think it's just getting to the place where you are able to make a living and know you'll be able to sell the next book. And then once that happens, then really who cares, you know?
Right. I do have to say that I'm very surprised that you don't think that you're famous, because I and all the other, I mean, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I and all the other writers I know, we all think you are. So,
Very kind.
well, anyway, I want to know about your writing life. Like, tell us like what it's been like for you. You're probably tired of asking this question, but I'm really curious. What is it like for you writing in the pandemic?
Well, yeah, and I want to ask you the same thing. I mean, I live in a part of Brooklyn that is pretty quiet and was not really hard hit. And so I wrote this thing for the Paris Review a few months ago about how it seemed so surrealistic, because I would see these things on the news about how hard hit New York City was. But to me, it felt like just a pleasant interlude at first. And then
Right.
actually I didn't lose anyone close to me, but you know, I saw the devastation, of course, and my step aunt died from it, and I actually had COVID. I think. I mean,
you did.
I was diagnosed with it. I never had a test that said I had it, but my doctor diagnosed me with it, and I felt bad, and so you know, it was.
You weren't in the hospital though, right?
No, God, it was
oh, that's good. That's lucky.
Yeah. How about yourself?
It's been very weird. It's been very weird. And I think, honestly, the thing that saved me to a large extent was A Mighty Blaze, because when The Mighty Blaze started, we were all working 20, 30 hours a day trying to get this thing running. And it was so much work, and nobody knew what we were doing. But on the other hand, it was good to be that busy, because I wasn't thinking about nobody's outside, everybody's in masks, people are getting sick. I was thinking more in terms of, what do? I don't understand this. I'm not a business person. How are we going to make this go?
It's so great that you did. I mean, it's just altruistic, you know. It's such a generous thing to do for writers. It's such a kind thing. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Well, I've had a lot of writers being incredibly kind to me on my way up, and I've also had like very few, but enough so that I remembered it. Like people being not so kind, and I always thought, why did they do that? I'm no threat to them. Why would somebody be like that, deliberately mean? And I just decided.
Who was it?
No, I'll tell you later. It's secret. I'll tell you in an email. But I just remember thinking, wow, it's so easy to do things for other people, just to be kind. And I wanted to be that way. And when the pandemic started, it was right before I was supposed to go to Houston at this huge library event. And I had done a whole speech with hand movements, and they canceled it. And I was really mad. And I thought, this is terrible. How can I have a book coming out and everything's canceled? So I decided, being a Pollyanna, that nothing was canceled. And I made a video of my speech. I sent it to the libraries and they said, oh, this is great. And I thought, I'm going to tell my friends. And I started spreading the word to people, saying, you know what, I'm going to put this on my blog, make a video, shout out another author, shout out an indie bookstore, and it'll just be fun. And it started out fun, and then all of a sudden I had like hundreds of people. And I was very, very lucky that my friend Jenna Blum called me up and said, do you want help? I said, yes, God, please. And she has a very she's like a film producer. She can juggle all these things and make all these things happen. And without her, there would not be a Mighty Blaze. And it's been this amazing thing, because you get to, well, first of all, I get to talk to all these writers that I deeply admire, like you, and you're helping the bookstores, which is always great and important, and you're helping other writers, which is great and important, and it forms a kind of community barrier against all the bad stuff that's happening outside.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I was told my book was coming out in August, it was the same thing. I was freaked out,
yeah.
I thought they'd done. I thought I did a good job. I hope they did. I thought they did a great job with the cover.
Cover's gorgeous. I love the red heels.
Happy with. Usually you have input or you don't like it, and you have to argue with them. They sent me this, and I just from the first, I thought this is perfect, So, but I'm looking at you too. I see you have a blurb from Helen Schulman, who I love. Are you friends with Helen?
No, you know what? Helen is like, I know her. I was assigned to review her book for, I don't know if it was for the Times or the Boston Globe, and I just loved the book. I absolutely loved the book. And I just, I wrote a great review for it. And she wrote and thanked me, and then months passed. And then I wrote her this email saying, oh, I hate to ask you, but could you blurb my book? And she said, are you kidding? After the review you gave me, I'd give you my left lung. And I thought, oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. So, all these things sort of go around and come around. But no, as you know, the blurb system is like totally anxiety ridden. But I think that books are doing pretty well now. The only thing is Zoom, what I call Zoom fatigue.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it used to be in New York, you were just up against, well, who else is reading tonight? So they're going to go to that person's event and not mine. Now you have a million Zooms that you can go to. So it's always, who's he going to go to and who are they going to choose?
You can have people from all over the country watch you, which is great.
Right.
And I did an event with I teach at NYU, and so we host a bunch of events, and we did an event for Joyce Carol Oates, and that was so cool because I wouldn't have been able to get her probably in there, and she was so great. And she was so funny, she's an idiosyncratic person. So I asked her a question. She said, "Oh, let me get a picture," and she just left. And then there's just a dead screen time, and she went and found this photo of herself and Mike Tyson, and she came back. And
that's great. That's great. Yeah, it's a whole new world. I want to tell everybody out there, if you would like to ask Darin questions, or if you'd like me to ask questions, there's my trampoline right over there. You might want to ask about it. Please do so, and we will be more than happy to answer any questions. I
want to ask about the trampoline. What is the trampoline?
Oh, see it over there? It's it's a mini trampoline, and somebody told me that, as you probably can tell, I'm a really anxious person. I've got all this anxious energy, and so I can't do anything like yoga because it's too slow and it's too I like to zoom around. So a friend of mine bought a trampoline, and she said, it's the best thing. You just go on it 20 minutes a day, and everything is cool, and you'll really love it. And it was cheap enough, so I bought it, and I bounce on it 20 minutes every day, blast the music. And oddly enough, after 20 minutes, you're sweating. You're really, really sweating. And it's good for your bones, it's good for your breathing, and it makes me feel like, okay, I did some exercise, because I don't really love exercise to begin with, but this is fun.
In the pandemic, I used to bike to Manhattan from Brooklyn. That was my exercise. I would just skip the subway, and I haven't been able to do that. So I bought a heavy bag, and I've been punching in my basement this punching bag, which is really good exercise, and it's great for stress. I put people's faces on it, and I just punch them.
Do you know how to punch? Is there a correct way to punch? I always forget where you're supposed to put your thumb.
you have to be careful. You can break your thumb, you can break your wrist, so you have to know how to punch. But it's good. I've become a better puncher, so I feel like if I get into a fight with a reviewer now, they should watch out.
You know the Richard Ford story, right? Alice Hoffman gave one of his books a negative review. So he took a gun and he shot a hole through one of her books and he delivered it to her. So that's kind of.
Here, when he spit on Colson Whitehead.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He did do that. I always figure, you know what? Sometimes a really nasty review is even better than a good review, because I think that when readers read it, they're looking to see what the book is about and the plot. And if somebody's deliberately nasty, you can tell,
Yeah.
oh, that person has something going on in them that they need to express. And
Colson had a great response. So he spit on, so Colson gave him a bad review in the Times. And then there was some writers event where he spit on him. And then the page 6 called Colson to ask about it. And he said, I'm not really that concerned. I've often been drooled on by older people.
oh God,
It's a great comeback, I thought. So
that's really funny. Yeah, there's been all kinds of like things like that. Actually, the greatest thing that ever helped me was when I became a book reviewer myself, because then I learned how subjective it is. And I began to look at every book that came in and think, you know what? Nobody deliberately sets out to write a bad book or to write a book where they think, oh, this is going to really piss off this reviewer and that's why I'm doing it. Each book is a lot of hard work. And if you're going to criticize it, at least do it in a way that's helpful or kind, by saying things like, well, maybe I would have wished that there was more of this character, instead of saying, oh, this book is so boring and I just wanted to jump off my house. And it made me realize that, you know, I look at books differently now, and I look at reviews differently, and I always look at who is reviewing somebody, because a lot of times it's, you know, it's very subjective. Jane is going to look to see if there's questions for you.
yeah. I think with this book, because it's about Lucille Ball, I think I'm getting a lot of readers I might not ordinarily get, because it's
Right, that's
literary readers, but also fans of Lucille Ball. So I'm curious what people are going to say, because I did set out to write a fun book, but I also think it's literary as well. So I think what I want to do with this book, I once was talking to a Barnes & Noble executive. I was nominated for my first book for the Discover New Writers Award. And the woman who ran the program said, there are two kinds of books. There are books, literary books, where you read slowly, and then there are page turners. And I wanted to prove her wrong. I wanted to say, you read both.
I'm so glad you said that, because I absolutely agree. I hate when they mark things as like, you know, what's literary and what's commercial. It's sort of like, can something be both? And I think that's what I love so much about your book, because not only was it was a total delight to read about Lucille Ball, but what also got me was the haunting quality and the yearning. And also the beauty of the writing. Definitely the beauty of the writing. Okay, you have a question. What would you like your readers to take from your books after reading them? This is from Lisa Haney. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. I mean, I guess to answer Lisa, what we just said, I want this book to be entertaining. George Saunders says, whatever else you want to get across in the book, be it moral uplift or social messaging, it depends on people enjoying it, getting what he calls pleasure bursts. And so I feel like I did want to examine fame and what it means to be ambitious in this book. And I wanted to examine how complicated love can be. But I also wanted to give pleasure bursts. I wanted this book to be fun first, and then get all that other stuff out there.
Okay. This says you too, Caroline. Okay. What I'd like readers to take from this is a little bit of knowledge about brain chemistry, that your brain changes all the time and the neurons are always firing and refiring, and you don't have to go through a coma to have that happen. And I wanted people to realize that, any moment something can happen in your life, and it doesn't have to be a disaster. It can be something that derails you in a good way. And that is sort of the message that I wanted to give people, and that you can have some input into that with some struggle, but it does work.
Hmm.
Okay, any other questions from anybody?
Very interesting.
Okay, then I guess we're going to wind it up. I'm going to say, Darin, it's been such a thrill for me to interview. I feel like I've been stalking you online since your first books. And it's delightful to talk to you. And thank you so much for coming on The Blaze. This will be recorded so that anybody out there, tell your friends, they can see it again and again and again. They can memorize it if they want. And please buy Darin's book, The Queen of Tuesday. It's absolutely wonderful. And if you buy my book, with you or without you, I will make you a watercolor. You just have to let me know. So thank you all. And let me just tell the tech person that we're signing off.
So great. Thank you so much. Really.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Darin. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.